Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the community conversation brought to you by Prototype Training Systems, home of CrossFit Prototype. The community conversation highlights a different member of the Prototype community each week and allows them to tell their story, share their life experience, and communicate their perspective on all things fitness. We've all listened to podcasts and watched YouTube videos that highlight some of the world's greatest leaders and visionaries, and we believe we have some amazing people here at Prototype, and we want you to get to know them. So to that end, I want to introduce you to our 12th guest, Aaron Hudson. Aaron has been part of the Prototype community for roughly 2 years. His wife, Jan, and 2 kids, Caitlin and Xander, also train at Prototype with Coach Steve. Caitlin is also one of our interns. Now, I don't know Aaron very well, but I'm really excited about this community conversation and for you to all get to know him as well. But from what Coach Steve's told me, Aaron's an awesome guy. He wears sweet custom-made suits. He's a big soccer and football fan. And Steve said he's pretty sure he was in a rock band as well. So, to that end, Aaron, thank you for being on the community conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So Aaron, how we start off the community conversation, typically just give us like a little bit of background. You know, where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? Tell us your story. How'd you get involved with training at Prototype? All that sort of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up a long way away from here in Britain, just outside Manchester, a place called Burnley in Lancashire, which is a working class town. It's very industrial town, so it's where part of the world where the Industrial Revolution started, and one of the main focuses of the town is really the football club, the Burnley Football Club, which was founded in, I think, 1886. Still in the same ground. It's in the Premiership now, believe it or not. Still in the Premiership. But so I, as a youth, I went down training down at Burnley, and so that's what you do in the town. You play soccer, football, we call it over there. Yeah. Uh-huh. So pretty typical childhood. I wasn't that good at school, but managed to. I decided, I think, as I got a little bit older, I decided I wanted to move away from the north of England. I love it still. It's in my DNA. It's where I'll have my ashes scattered over the moors there. It's a bit like Wuthering Heights there. You can imagine the dark satanic moors, and so that's where I feel most at home. But I wanted to get away, and so then I went to Sheffield University. So I did a degree in biochemistry and then a PhD in molecular genetics and protein chemistry. So I was there for a long time over in, that's the other side of the Pennines. So down the backbone of England, you've got this set of hills called the Pennines. And on one side, you've got one side you've got Lancashire, that's on the left. On the west, on the east, you've got Yorkshire, and that's the War of the Roses, if you remember. So it's going from Lancashire to Yorkshire was a big thing back then. So then I after university, I went out to, university, and prior to that, I'd spent some time working in France. Just decided that I wanted to go to France, so I hitchhiked around France. I worked in factories, I taught tennis, I was a shepherd for a little while as well, just trying to make some money. Learned to speak French, and then after university, worked during the holidays in France and Switzerland. After university, then got a job in Manchester in England in a scientific company, Scientific Instruments, make something called mass spectrometers, and I've been in that industry ever since for about 20 years. And 2006, I came over to America. I'm now an American citizen as well, so I've got dual nationality as the rest of my family. And so since 2006, I'm American citizen, and love it over here. I feel I don't know. I probably I'm not American, but I'm not British anymore either. So it's a bit of a cross between the two.
What's been the biggest difference or transition? It sounds like you've kind of moved around a little bit. You obviously grew up in Britain, went to France, which I would love to hear more about that because that sounds awesome. And then to America, what's been the biggest differences, or like how would you explain that or describe that?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. When I was in the north of England, this is a small town in the north of England. And as you're growing up, you think, you know what, those people in Yorkshire, that I really don't like those people in Yorkshire. They're really strange people. But then you go to Yorkshire and it's the north of England. You say, you know what, north of England is great. South of England, I don't like the Londoners. Londoners are a real strange breed. And then, my best friend at university is a Londoner. I go down and see the guy, and so you think, well, Britain's great, but France, the continent, Europe, they're strange, they're foreigners. And then you go and live there, and they're not, right? So you get this constant expansion. And probably at that point, I'm thinking, you know what? The Americans, oh my God, Disneyland, and I think it was what's the guy, George Bush at the time, So it's like, my God, the Americans are so strange. And then I come and live here, and they're not, and everybody's just people. And so I think there are changes and nuances in the culture. Even when I go out to China, I travel a lot with my job, China, Japan. Changes in the culture and the food, and but people are just people, really, and trying to earn a living and raise a family, and I think there's pros and cons everywhere, kindness and bad stuff everywhere. So I don't know. I think once you get over the cultural stuff and tomatoes and all of that, there's no difference. The world is a small place.
You mentioned you travel a lot for work and different like food and stuff. Let's talk about like all the places that you've been, or what's like your favorite place that you've traveled, and maybe talk a little bit about your time in France. You said you learned to speak French fluently.
I was at the time, yeah, I had to be. I must have been 17 or 18 years old, and I just decided I'd go and live in France. And I got school French, which is not that, let me tell you, it doesn't really do a lot for you. I think I could probably say the monkey is in the tree, from my French, but that doesn't really get you very far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just hitchhiked around France, and I worked on campsites over there as well. There's a company at the time called Eurocamp. So they had these tents and mobile homes that were in different places, campsites in France. And so as a young guy, I could go over there and work on the campsites for 6 months at a time. And that's great, right? You immerse yourself in a different culture, and it was hard, right? I think I learned a lot at that point about myself and about being lonely as well, being in a foreign country that you don't really speak the language. So that was tough. I learned a lot about being an immigrant, and that's probably relevant today as much as it was then, how hard it is to come to a foreign country and to fit in. So worked on the campsites over there for a long time, worked in Switzerland in a place called Arolla, which is a small ski village right at the top of, I think, the only glacier you can get to in Europe. It's down in the south of Switzerland, and so it's probably about an hour's drive from the closest village, and you get up there, and so I was this hotel in winter. I did it in winter, and I did it in the summer as well. Learned how to ski up there, which is not, British people don't really know how to ski in general, so that was a first for me. Yeah, what else can I tell you? And just learned the culture and loved the language. I was pretty fluent at that point, but that's 30 years ago. So I still speak a little bit of it, but I've lost a lot of it.
You said you bounced around for work, like to China and different countries. So what's like been your favorite place that you've traveled to, I guess, like in general?
I love Japan. I really do love Japan. It's just amazing. So culturally different. But there is a real respect and kindness there with the people, and they're very meticulous, very clean, very ordered, and so I think as far as a totally different culture, that's the one that I like the best. The food's great, obviously, although there's some things that I've eaten that are probably not that great. I think the worst one was raw fish liver that I drank from a glass. So that's probably not something I'm going to repeat.
Doesn't sound appetizing.
But China, I love China. I think there's some great places in China as well. I've traveled extensively throughout China. Again, so, you've got to really, you just got to immerse yourself and have curiosity. You know, if you go there saying, oh, all I'm going to do is eat McDonald's, and you know, what's the point, right? I think you've got to go and experience it and try and immerse yourself in the culture. So I've eaten things that I probably shouldn't have done over there, you know, ducks' heads and beaks and, chicken feet and, you know, lots of stuff like that. So China's great. Where else have I been? India is fantastic. I love India as well. Although I've been really ill in India. I made the classic mistake, right? So I've been in India for about 2 weeks, traveling around. And when you go over on business there, they look after you, right? They know that you don't have the right immune system to deal with it. So they're very careful. So I've been chauffeured around and driven around. I think, I can't remember where this was. I think it may be Delhi or Mumbai. And then the last night, it wasn't going to the airport, but I think it was like later on. I thought, you know what? We just parked the car up, and I kind of got into the Indian experience. And there was this street seller by the side of the road, and it's like it's even madness just telling you about this now. But so he got this bowl of masala milk, which is about, you know, 1.5 yards diameter of a circular thing. He's got this masala milk that he's, you know, stirring, and they got some spices in it and things. And I thought, oh, that looks really nice. So I had a bit of that and drank it, gave him a couple of rupees, drank it, and then got on the plane, got back home, and I had to go to hospital. I mean, the dysentery, the works, I was on a drip. I mean, yeah, it just absolute madness. But India is a funny place because it's just such a dichotomy of wealth and poor, right? You don't know poor until you've seen children begging in the streets with limbs removed, and it's brutal. It's so brutal to go and to see, you know. And so you come out of a 5-star hotel, and then there's, you know, somebody dying on the street close by, and certainly the first time I went 20 years ago. I mean, it's obviously improved a lot since then. So that's India. Where else? All throughout Europe. Europe's great. You get a lot of different experiences very quickly. And I went interrailing around Europe as well. So you can actually get on a train, overnight train, wake up the next morning, and like you're from, I think you go from, what was it, Germany to Turkey or something, or Croatia, and Croatia, yeah. And you know, again, that's just like totally different countries. Russia, I went to Russia actually as well. That was a long time ago. That was.
Was this all for work, or is this just for pleasure, just travel?
Mainly work, I think. This was when I went to Russia, it was an exchange trip, but this was a strange one because this was before, this was just after Perestroika, which was like the fall of the Berlin Wall, and you know, as the Soviet Union was collapsing. It might have been a bit after that, early 90s or something, and so this, you probably don't remember this, but there was a guy called Boris Yeltsin, who was, what was it? I'll mess this up because I don't remember the history, but it was like the revolution, right? The social revolution, trying to get capitalism back in after Mikhail Gorbachev. And so there was some kind of revolution where the Kremlin was stormed, and they had the guns, and they were firing guns and things, and Boris Yeltsin stood on this tank outside the Kremlin and declared independence, and I went 2 weeks after that. I didn't know whether I was going to go or not, because it was, we're all going, well, we're going to Russia, and then we finally, you know, are we going? Are we not going? And we went, and we actually went to the Kremlin, and there were still people camped outside the Kremlin, part of this uprising. And there's bullet holes and on the Kremlin walls and things, and the guy that was taking me there was an exchange trip. he's like, just don't say anything, right? If they find out you're not Russian, you're in trouble. So just don't say anything. And at that point, there was nothing in the shop. So I was a millionaire over there because of the ruble had crashed, and I was a student at the time. But there was nothing to buy. All I could do was buy these Matryoshka dolls, the nested dolls. So I had like dozens of those things, and then the Russian hats, and that's all I could buy in Russia at that point. You walk into the shops and there's no food or anything. But that was an interesting one as well.
So I was gonna say, did that make you feel more like, did you fit in because you had all the dolls and you had the hats, or did you look more like a tourist?
No, not at all.
So it's interesting because I'm taking this back from what you said earlier. I think I remember you saying something about you weren't good at school, but then you went into chemistry, and then you say like genetics, or so what do you do for work? And since you've traveled all over the world, like it sounds like you do some pretty cool things. Like what do you do?
Yeah, so I run marketing and strategy for a company that's based in Framingham, and this company is Analytical Science. And so we make a mass spectrometer, which is essentially a weighing scale, but it weighs molecules and quantifies molecules. Mm-hmm. So we're the world leaders at quantifying molecules, which you might say, well, who on earth wants to do that? But when you think about it, so why do you want to quantify a molecule? Well, for food testing, safety of the food, how many pesticides are in the food, what pesticides are in there. For drugs of abuse testing, clinical testing, right? If you want to know, if you do a wellness test, you're going to take an armful of blood at the doctors, then they do a test on you. They want to know what the biomarkers are in there for specific diseases and things. And so we can use our equipment to do that. The cancer research, if you want to quantify the molecules, right? So if you think about, if you think about the different molecules in your body, there's only really 5 types of molecule in your body. You've got DNA, you've got RNA, you've got proteins, lipids, and metabolites. And obviously your muscles are made up of proteins, and your metabolites are steroids and things, and signaling molecules. But it's essentially just those 5 things. And so when you now want to, and so our focus is really around precision medicine and around trying to improve both the diagnostics to get more accurate diagnostics, and then more accurate therapies associated with that, including things like immunotherapies for the new types of biologic drugs, and things like the RNA vaccines as well that they're using for COVID. So all of those things, all of that scientific research is predicate on the foundation of being able to quantify molecules. And so our systems are the ones that do that. And I run the marketing organization, marketing and strategy.
That's fascinating. And this is right out of Framingham.
It's based in Framingham, but it's a multinational company. And so it's about $1 billion corporation. And we've got places all around the world. But that in turn is part of a bigger company called Danaher. Danaher is probably the biggest company you've never heard of in America. And so I think it's about a $60 billion company. 60,000 people work for it. And so there's different operating companies within Danaher. Things like companies like Leica Microscopy, that's the microscopes, the research microscopes, Beckman Diagnostics, that does the diagnostics in hospitals. Interesting ones, a couple of companies. One is called Cepheid, which is a molecular diagnostic company, and that's one of the companies that's doing the COVID testing. They're the COVID tests that you can get for the diagnostics, as well as Beckman. IDT, Integrated DNA Technologies, is another one. That's the one that makes all of these primers for the diagnostic tests that go into all the different diagnostic tests. So yeah, so it's kind of analytical life sciences. That's the business that I'm in. So
that's super important, especially with everything that's going on, and with the pandemic and COVID and all that sort of stuff. Your industry and what you're doing, it's important stuff, but you've seemed like you've had to travel a lot. But I assume that was affected? How has your and what you do been affected by everything going on?
Yeah, I've been sat at this desk for a year now. I'm not
Looks like an
traveling.
awesome desk. You got a great setup.
I made that. I made it. So that's one of my hobbies, right? The bookcase and everything.
You made that
was,
whole thing behind you?
yeah, and the table. You can't see the table, but I made the table as well.
That's
So I at the
fantastic.
pandemic, I was just thinking, you know what? I need a better hobby. I can't do a lot of other things, so I chose woodwork. And
So how'd you learn? So you just are you just
I
handy
didn't.
by nature, or did you just like how
Yeah,
did you get how did you
YouTube.
isn't YouTube great? You can learn anything on you can learn anything on you can get a degree on YouTube basically. So
You can. It's brilliant. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. So you just basically use like your the free time and the time you have to do traveling, all that sort of stuff, and that's what you so you
Yeah.
made the whole setup behind you. What else? And you said you made your desk.
I made the table. I made bookcases. I made a swing. What do you call it? A porch swing outside.
If my wife hears this, she's going to be so pissed at me. She's like, "Why didn't you
Man,
do all
gotta
that? Why
get.
didn't you figure out all that stuff while we were
Yeah,
doing
Mike.
that?"
What have you been doing with your life?
All have I been doing? I guess I've just been I guess I've just been working out. Which brings me to my next question: how did you get involved and start working out at Prototype? And how did you like find Steve? And like, how did that whole thing? How did that all happen?
Yeah. So I've been sporty all my life, really. Obviously, playing a lot of soccer, and been injured a lot all my life as well. Bad knees and bad backs and things. And why did I meet Steve? So Steve, I used to coach with Steve.
Oh,
Steve
okay.
coaches soccer.
Yep.
In the local community, company called Best Soccer.
Yep. Best FC. Yep.
Yeah, Best FC. So I was actually coaching the team, and Steve came along and took all the credit for the hard work that I'd done.
I hope he's listening to this right now.
I got demoted to assistant coach at that point. But no, we worked together for a little while, coach, and my daughter played on that team as well. And so then I seemed a natural progression for my children, Xander and Caitlin, to get some private coaching with him. Because the stuff that you guys do didn't really exist when I was a kid. And so you get thrown outside, run around, kick a ball. And if you got injured, you just rest up. Mm-hmm. So this whole thing around strength training and fitness and it didn't exist, but I really think it's so important. It's not just about getting an education at school. It's getting your body right, building your body and ensuring that you're going to have a healthy life. You 90 years or whatever it is of healthy life. So Steve was saying, well, you got the training there, and I asked Xander and Kate to go along to it. They loved it. Then my wife started doing it as well. And then, Steve persuaded me to do it as well, which I'm grateful for, actually, because I still play soccer. I play for Concord United in the New England Over the Hill League. It's unfortunately called.
It's called Over the Hill League?
It's called the New England Over the Hill League, which is really insulting. But it's still a pretty high standard. You got a lot of ex-pros and semi-pros playing, and a lot of the South Americans who are just far too good. And so I just got to keep the strength and the fitness up these days. It's not enough just to turn up on a Sunday morning and kick a ball about. So he helps me with that, and I've noticed the difference. I think certainly that he's very knowledgeable, right? Because he played soccer himself, so he understands what the stresses that are on the body and how you need to build up the different muscles to support not getting injured there.
Yeah, the sports performance side, the injury prevention side, and then just the general fitness of life. So it sounds like a lot of your training goals are around, because I know you mentioned like knees and you were injured a lot. It sounds like a lot of your training is dedicated.
I've broken every bone in my body, and and just play soccer. It's bad knees, bad everything. So this has really helped me. I'm obviously not as fit to be. I'm getting on now, but I probably not as, I'm not as in pain as much as I used to be.
That's a positive, man.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
huge
My
positive.
age, you take what you can get.
You can go out and play soccer and play it, at a relatively competitive level. And so is it like every week, you said every Saturday, you guys are going out and playing a few games or one game, or like how does the league work?
No, it's a league. It's a league, and there's a league in the spring and then the fall as well. I think it's about 10 games in each of them, and so it's competitive. Sunday mornings, we got to get up early on Sunday morning and travel throughout. Well, how far do we go? It's like within 50 or 60 miles. Going to Boston as well, Cambridge. So there's a number of teams around this area. It's pretty big. I think it's the biggest league in the US, actually.
Really?
Is the New England League. Yeah, there's tens of thousands of people that play, and hundreds of clubs with multiple different divisions. We're in the top division, but yeah, there's a lot of different divisions there, and I applaud the people that keep that going, because it's hard work, especially with COVID as well. We played in the spring and we had to play with masks on, which is hard. It's even harder with masks because not only you've got your cardiovascular, right? You're running and you can't breathe properly, but when you're playing soccer, the ball's at your feet. You can't actually. The mask is precluding you looking at your feet as well. So it wasn't pretty, but hey, we had some fun.
You're still able to do it, right?
I'm still able to do it, yeah.
And that's the benefit there. I am like fascinated by all the stuff that we've been talking about: the travel, work, soccer, all that stuff. I got a few more questions for you here, Aaron. This is our Spitfire round.
Okay.
3 questions. Number 1 is, what's your favorite movie / TV show of all time, and/or, so it can be one of both. And then in addition to that, what are you currently binge watching right now? Everyone's binging something.
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, favorite movie? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just watched that again the other day. Fantastic movie.
Fantastic, classic. I love it. And what am I binge watching at the moment? Well, this may be a surprise to you. I'm binge watching a program called Pose, which is it's on Netflix. It's about the transgender community in New York in the 80s. And so why am I doing that? It's because I'm the LGBTQ representative at work. I'm trying to promote that within our company. And I've got an interest in it. I really feel for these people that are biologically born into with one gender and identify as another gender. How hard must that be to try and live your life as something that you're not? So that's what I'm watching. It's Pose, P-O-S-E. It's on Netflix. I encourage everybody to watch that as well and try and empathize with the transgender community. I'm
going to look into that. That sounds great. And that's fantastic. I did not know that that's something that you're doing with work and getting that out there. That's fantastic. Like, a lot of people are going to like you even more after hearing that, especially people in at our community. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's you just got to try. You got to have the conversations and do your best. And I think people are afraid of making mistakes, and I am as well. I make tons of mistakes, and but I think if your intentions are good, then that's recognized, and you've just got to do your best to build a better community. That's probably something you can relate to, right? At Prototype, building a community where everybody feels as though they can be their authentic self.
Inclusiveness is so important to us. 100%. That's why I love that. Next question: favorite musician, band, or whatever of all time. And by the way, what's the thing that I mentioned in the beginning about you being in a band? Is that a real thing, or is that just something Steve kind of?
I was in a band. Yeah, I was in a band when I was back in England.
Yeah, let's talk about that, and then let's go into your favorite. Maybe your own favorite musician.
All right.
I don't know.
All right. So the band was called Next Door's Cat. And we played weddings and bar mitzvahs and funerals and anything else where people wanted it. And yeah, we were bloody awful, to be honest. but we enjoyed
What,
it.
what did you play?
It was-
Did you sing or did you, what did you ever
I
play?
play guitar. I play guitar, yeah, and a bit of backing vocals. We had a singer that couldn't quite hit the notes or sing in tune, but it was, yeah, we had our moments. It was okay. We did some of our own stuff as well, and but it was, Rolling Stones, Clash, those types of things, and popular
You still play the
songs.
guitar?
I've not played for a little while, actually. Yeah, it's work gets on top of it, and family life. But I've still got a couple downstairs. And I also, so I used to write songs as well and record songs. I had a recording studio when I was back in England, and so I need to establish that now. That's a while ago now, though.
You had your own recording studio back in England?
Yeah, I built my own recording studio. Yeah, I mean, like, let's just, this is not Abbey Road.
Yeah.
Right? This is hard disk recording. This is computer recording. So maybe
cool.
maybe I'm overselling it as a studio there.
No, that's still awesome. Again, this is all new. I didn't have no idea. This is so awesome. So, favorite musician and band of all time, was it
Band
Next
of all
Door's
time is
Cat or what was
Radiohead.
it? Radiohead.
Radiohead, no question. Absolute genius. It's brilliant.
Awesome. I like that. And then last question here, Aaron. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working or working out or playing soccer? What's your favorite, I guess, hobby? I guess
He's taking everything there. Those are the things that I do. What else have I got? What's my favorite thing to do?
Well, I guess you could say soccer. I guess it could be footballs. I'm sorry. I guess it could be football.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I've just got to keep active all the time. I'm always doing something. It's probably DIY. I mean, I don't know why that's my favorite thing. It's just like what I end up doing. My favorite things are passionate about my job, passionate about my family, my sports, my fitness, and and the rest of it is just trying to keep my head above water. But I can't sit still, right? It drives my wife mad. I just cannot sit still. So if I got 10 minutes, I'm kind of looking at my phone going, what can I do in those 10 minutes? How can I be productive in those 10 minutes?
YouTube,
there you go. Yeah.
You can learn something else on YouTube. Man, this was fantastic. So Aaron, I got to thank you for being part of the community conversation today. This means so much to me, means so much to the community at Prototype. Everyone that's listening right now, thank you for tuning in. Remember, every week we are releasing a new community conversation with a new guest to get your week started. So to be the first to know about the community conversation and when it's posted, subscribe to our YouTube page. Again, we're also streaming on all major platforms now, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So please subscribe and also join our daily brief newsletter. Lastly, if you are a member at Prototype and you are not in our private Prototype members only club on Facebook, please get in and join. You get all this stuff before it's all released. And if you'd like to be on the community conversation, just let us know. We'd love to have you. So until next time, again, Aaron, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.